So my buddy Daryl tells this awesome story about this one time he was on a Greyhound bus. And he's going to South Carolina in the middle of July. It's like sweltering. And they barely get out of the station before the AC cuts out. So they're like 20, 30 minutes down the road. The entire bus is screaming at the driver like, "You gotta pull over, man. It's getting too hot. We gotta switch buses." So the bus driver, as my buddy Daryl describes him, looks like Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I love that visual. And he goes, he leans in the mic and he goes, "Folks, we're not switching buses, okay? I know it's hot. I need you to bear with me. We'll be in South Carolina in 9 hours. So this one young guy steps up and he goes, "No." And they have this, they have those emergency hatches on the top of the bus. He tries to open that up to get some fresh air in. And so Uncle Phil sees him and leans in and goes, "Sir, no, I need you to sit down before." He goes, "Before you do what? What you gonna do, fat ass?" Uncle Phil says, "What am I gonna do?" Pulls the bus over to the side of the road, and in one of the greatest lines ever said outside of a movie, he gets on the mic and he goes, "Next stop, ass whooping." Took that young man outside and whooped his ass. I love that story. I love it so much, in fact, that when my buddy Daryl moved to San Diego, I just kept telling it on his behalf. Any bar, any lunch, any party, if the topic of conversation was like travel or transportation, I'd let somebody else finish and I'd go, "Oh, you think that's crazy?" This one time my buddy Daryl was on a Greyhound bus. And then I'd launch into the story and it always killed. So one night me and my wife, we went to a dinner party. Let me fix this real quick. Went to a dinner party and it was a new group of people. We're trying to make a good impression. So we're there and we're sitting around the table. After dinner, we're knocking back a couple of cocktails. And the topic of conversation shifts to road trips. Perfect, right? So a couple of people told some very boring stories. We almost left, to be honest. But they finally got around the table to that one good-looking guy. Not me, it was somebody else. Sorry if that was confusing, there was two of us there. And now this guy actually told like a very funny story about a time that he got piss-wasted drunk in Dewey Beach. And he convinced a Delaware state cop to drive him all the way home to D.C. in the backseat of his cruiser. Really funny story. But I noticed that one person was laughing like much harder than everybody else. And that was my wife. And like I looked at it, I was like, "Oh, you like that little tale he just wove?" There's a little pang of jealousy inside me. I was like, "Oh, all those funny little ha-has he was just sprinkling in, you like that?" So I let the laughter die down a little bit, and then I said, "Oh, you think that's crazy? Well, this one time, I was on a Greyhound bus." Till this day, I have no idea why I said me and not my buddy Daryl, but I figure if he liked the story so much, maybe he shouldn't have moved to San Diego. That's his bad. And so from there, I just proceeded to crush that story from the first person perspective, right? And now that I'm in the story, I can add all these fun little asides to it, you know, like for instance, like the guy who was trying to open the emergency hatch. Would you believe he was sitting right next to me? This son of a bitch starts trying to climb over me. I'm like, "Dude, where are you going?" He's like, "I'll be where I'm at." I'm like, "Damn, Playboy, get it." And as I'm telling it and everybody's laughing, it occurred to me that all this time, the one thing that's been missing from this story was me. It's fantastic now. And now I'm leading up to the punchline. I got the entire party like eating out of my hand. And I go, and one of the greatest lines ever said outside of a movie, Uncle Phil leans in and he goes, "Next stop, ass whooping." Entire party erupts in laughter. I was on fire, dude. I burned up everything at that dinner party, including the distant memory of Pretty Boy's story about, who the fuck even remembers? Dude, it was my night now. Yeah? Dude, we walked outside after the party was over. My wife was like, "I don't remember the story going that way." And I was like, "Well, you might want to get used to it because I'm going to be telling it that way from now on." And so for like the next 3 years, that's exactly what I did. Like 25 times I told that story with me in it. Every time it got a little bit better. Sometimes I even added like new shit to it. I was like, this So I thought, I was like, this one time, I was on a Greyhound bus going to South Carolina, meet this chick I was dating. Second runner-up, Miss Charleston, no big deal, whatever. And the story always went over like gangbusters until this one time that it didn't. It was like right after my office Christmas party, and I somehow ended up in a car with my boss and 3 of my coworkers, and we were heading down to a bar to see 5 of my personal friends down there. And we get down there, and that's a weird situation, but it actually turned out almost magical. I get down there, and there's a couple of my friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. They were home for the holidays. It was good to see them. And then they were getting along real well with the coworkers. We were having such a good time, in fact, that strangers from the bar joined our group. Like, when does that shit happen, you know? So we're knocking back a couple of drinks, and this woman I work with, she goes, Mike, tell him the one about the Greyhound bus. That's how good this fucking story was, okay? People were calling up and requesting it, you know? It was like the summer that Hey Ya came out. Like, everybody wanted to hear that shit. You know? So I could, you want me to tell the, I said, well, this one time, I was on a Greyhound bus, and everybody leans in, and they're all excited to hear this, except for one guy. Actually, one of my friends randomly just decided like he wasn't in the mood for fun that night. And I saw him, he like crossed his arms, and he got like real upset. And like, it started fucking with my head a little bit, but I knew this story so well at this point that I could do it from muscle memory. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, it means like up here, like my mouth is going like, and the people are saying, man, you gotta pull over and switch buses. Meanwhile, like, my head's like looking straight at my friend like, dude, relax. Like, what the fuck, dude? Why are you hating right now, man? Let me get this out in front of my boss. Give me the spotlight. You can have it back in a second, you know? But meanwhile, I'm telling the story better than I've ever told it. Like, I don't even know how other people can hear it because they're laughing so hard. Harder and harder. And yet my friend in the front is doing the exact opposite. Like, he's going the other way. He's getting madder and madder, and he's looking at everybody else like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? And now I'm leading up to the punchline. And I'm like, dude, if he doesn't like this punchline, then somebody ought to just check his pulse, because this motherfucker might be dead. Like, this story doesn't miss. So then I go, and then, in one of the greatest lines ever said outside of a movie, and I take this long, dramatic pause. But before I could get the words out, my friend goes, let me guess, next stop, ass whooping? I said, holy shit, yeah, exactly, that's what it was. And he goes, is that what you do? You go to bars and you tell other people's stories like they're yours? And when he said that, it clicked. My friend in the front was my buddy Daryl. To whom the story actually happened. And you're like, what, you didn't know it was him? No, I knew it was him. I definitely did. I talked to him for like 45 minutes before that, but that's how far I had detached him from the story. Like, it like never occurred to me. In fact, when he said the punchline, I was like, this motherfucker's trying to steal my story. Like, and so now we're just sitting there and like no one's saying anything. And finally my boss breaks the silence. He goes, wait a minute, Mike, this isn't your story? I was like, what? I said, well, it's inspired by true events, like, you know. And Daryl goes, it's not his story, it's my story. You really think Mike could have hooked up with second runner-up Miss Charleston? Are you kidding me? I was like, wait, bullshit. I was like, that was actually mine. Like, I actually added that part. That wasn't yours. And he goes, yeah, but that doesn't mean that it happened. I was like, dude, nobody wants to hear your good points right now, dude. Shut the fuck up. And the awkwardness was so bad that it drove the entire crowd apart. Like, everybody went off in a different direction, and suddenly it's just me and Daryl standing there face to face. And he walks up to me, I guess about this close, and I'll never forget this. He goes, you're a bitch. And he just fucking walked past. And that night was the last night that I ever told that story until I told it on stage. And even with my buddy Daryl here tonight, what's up? I realized I tell the story a lot better than you do, dude. Now, there's a reason you're on the balcony and I'm on the stage right now, dude. It's my story. I was on a Greyhound bus. I was on the Greyhound bus. Thank you.